Hello again, class. In this video, we're going to talk about solving quadratic equations. Quadratic equations go from very simple situations all the way up to very complex situations, and we're going to quickly go through each one in this video. So we'll start off with the simple equations. Sometimes you can get away with these simple equations by solving just like we used to, just isolating the variable and getting the variable by itself. So we'll look at this equation, x squared minus 2 equals 14. And we've got to think, well, okay, let's try to get the variable by itself. We have x squared minus 2. I have to get rid of that minus 2 by adding 2 to both sides. So we'll have x squared equals 16. And then we can take the square root of both sides. And I'd like you to just think about the answer real quickly in your head. All right, some of you said x equals 4. And this is wrong. That is an incorrect answer. It is an incorrect answer because there are actually two answers. Go ahead and think about what a possible second answer could be. So some of you might have been thinking about the opposite side of the number line. So if you think about this, when you take the square root of a number, square root of 16, there's actually two different numbers. There is a positive 4 that will multiply to 16, but there is also a negative 4 times a negative 4 that will multiply to 16. So whenever you take the square root of a number, there are two answers. There's a positive and a negative. So the answer here, written in a little bit more condensed form, would be x equals plus or minus 4. Now, just like our other equations, when we're solving regular equations, we can check our answer. To check your answer, you just plug both of your answers back into the original equation and see if they work. So I'll plug 4 into the equation. 4 squared is 16. Minus 2 should be 14, and that does check out. 14 does equal 14. And the other one, negative 4 squared, negative 4 times negative 4 is 16. Minus 2 is in fact 14, so it balances out, which means it checks. All right, here's another example. I'd like you to go ahead and try to tackle this. Isolate the variable, get the variable by itself to solve your quadratic equation. Okay, so to get x by itself, we would divide by 2 on both sides. That's the opposite of multiply by 2. So x squared equals 36. And now to get rid of that x squared, we'll do the opposite, which is square root. What times itself gives us that number? So that will give us x equals, and take a second here, it's not just one answer. There's actually two answers, plus or minus 6. And again, you can check your work by plugging in your answers. In both situations here, you end up getting 72 equals 72. So that checks out. I'd like you to go ahead and try to solve this one here. So pause the video, solve this one, isolate the variable, get the x by itself, and figure out what the answer is. Okay, so this one was a little bit of a trick question. I said before in the video that when you take the square root of a number, you always have two answers. That's not necessarily true. If you look at this case, when we try to solve this equation here, this quadratic equation, we add 16 to both sides. We end up with x squared equals 0. If you take the square root of 0, you actually get just 0. Not a positive and a negative 0, because there are no positive and negative zeros. 0 is neutral. It's in the middle. So when you have the square root of 0, you actually have just one solution, one answer. Here's another example I'd like you to try out. Go ahead, pause the video, get x by itself, solve the quadratic equation. All right, so I think I might have tricked some of you again. If we try to solve this quadratic equation, we'll first start off by subtracting 19 from both sides. Great. X squared equals negative 16. And then a lot of you did the correct thing. You took the square root of both sides and you said x equals plus or minus 16. I'm sorry, not 16, 4. And some of you are like, all right, great, I did it right. But this is not correct. If you think about it, when you take the square root of negative 16, you're asking what times itself gives you negative 16. So if you do 4, 4 times 4 is not negative 16. And if you do negative 4 times negative 4, that's not negative 16. There is no possible way that you can multiply the same number by a number to get a negative number. So if you're trying to take the square root of a negative number, you actually need more advanced mathematics that we're not going to quite get into in this course, and it will involve using imaginary numbers. So look forward to that in future courses. So when you have something like this, there are actually no solutions. No solutions. So just to quickly cap what we went over in those last 3 types of problems, you could actually have 2 solutions to a quadratic equation. You could have 1 solution to a quadratic equation, or you could have no solutions. There's 3 different options when you're solving a quadratic equation.